Hi, everybody. I'm so happy that you're all here. I'm Jess Boyardi. I'm the Vice President of Revenue Operations at Group Black. And I'm so excited. Thank you, guys. And I'm so excited to host these three amazing women for us to talk about motherhood and operations. So I would love for them to each introduce themselves and explain what they do a little bit more as they would explain it to their kids. So let's start with Sarah.
I'm Sarah Clark. I'm the Senior Director of Ad Operations at ViewPlanner. And I interrupt my son's YouTube videos with commercials.
Hi, everyone. Kate Calabrese, Senior Vice President of Media Solutions at She Media. Similarly, I explained to my daughters that all the commercials that they see on their iPad were brought to you by mommy. So.
And I'm Erica Beltran. I'm the Senior Director of Program and Content Strategy for CNN. And I would tell my daughter, Mama helps make TV happen.
Thank you, guys. So we hear it a lot. We expect women to work like they don't have kids and to parent like they don't work. And balance is always something that's brought up. We talk about it a lot. Is there such thing as work-life balance? How do we figure that out? Kate, I'd love to kick this over to you. Is there such a thing? Do you feel like that's true?
I think balance changes every single day. I don't think there's such thing as building and maintaining some perfect equilibrium. I think it's, quite frankly, pretty unrealistic. I think where I found balance is identifying where I'm needed most that day. If my career is demanding more from me that day, really trying to be present in the moment there. If my kids need me more in that day, trying to be really present and in the moment. But yeah, I think there's a lot of fluidity with balance and taking the pressure off of exactly to that point, being everywhere for everyone at all the same time. So I think it's more of a balancing act than balance itself.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When you're thinking about the fast-paced careers that we all have, everything is pretty 24/7, everything is needed immediately. How are you thinking about that with the responsibilities of motherhood? Erica, as a newer parent, I'd love to hear from you about this.
Yeah, so I work at CNN, and so it is a 24/7 environment. And I think one thing that I have found is that a lot of the sort of way that I've worked before, which is, in service really to others, in service to other client groups, has translated into being a parent. It's almost like a little bit of a project. And at work, I have to deal with breaking news. At home, breaking news could look like my daughter doesn't take her nap, and so we have to pivot. And so it looks like that, just like you mentioned. It looks like every day is different. I think realistically, it almost looks like a non-traditional sort of work day. It means logging on after my child has gone to bed. It means maybe working or getting something started on a weekend to get ahead of the week. And sort of like you mentioned, figuring out the priorities in just new and different ways depending on what comes up.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of us work in more of an operational role, and operations roles are truly 24/7. I feel like things come up at all different times of the day, text, phone, Slack, all of those noises can really trigger us in a lot of ways if we're in the middle of doing something else. So we look at support in a very different way when we become parents. Sarah, I'd love for you to talk about your support system. What does that look like at home, at work, and what has been the most helpful for you in these 24/7 moments when being a mom and trying to balance it?
Yeah, so I feel like it's a united front. Support, if you have a partner, having that person aligned with the fact that you do have a very demanding job and you also have a family that is very demanding. But if it's not just your home, it's not just your partner, it's your company, having a company that appreciates the fact that, you might have to slip away to go pick up somebody from daycare. I feel like in a 24/7 job, I should ask the same, type of flexibility that my company is asking of mine. So if I have to work on the weekend or if I have to work at night because a client has a creative launching on a Sunday, I should get the same support if I need to leave in the middle of the day to do something for my son or for my kids. So I feel like it's, a united front. But it can come in other ways as well. So finding ways to sort of hack your support, grocery delivery, or if you can, get a cleaner to help once a month or whatever the case is. Maybe enroll your kids in some kind of fun activity that you can drop them off for a day and just, whatever that support system looks like. It doesn't have to be your partner at home. It can just be your community or even just, like a Instacart service.
I have never relied on a hotspot more than when I became a parent. You can hotspot from anywhere. My son's karate class, from sometimes like in the basement of school. So I feel like when you're talking about some of the things that you outsource, thinking about other ways that you could stay connected is important. And then having that village that you can really rely on, especially when you're in the middle of something. I feel like it always happens. You're in the middle of something so serious, and then you look at the phone and it's daycare, or it's like the school nurse, and it just feels like it's all imploding. But knowing that you are not alone and that you have a system and a village is really important. So let's talk about some stats. So working mothers experience higher levels of anxiety compared to working fathers. Remote work has helped this in a lot of ways, but it has definitely nailed working mothers who do work remotely as the default parent. So we all remember COVID, whether we like it or not, and if we were a parent or if we were both Sarah and I both had COVID babies, we like to really push that away sometimes because it's so scary to think about how we did it. But thinking about the opportunities that we've had since then and remote work becoming so much more prevalent, how does it make you the default parent? How are you balancing if you're full back to work, if you're part back to work? How does that change the dynamics, and how are you building those boundaries? So Sarah, I'll start with you and then we can go down the line.
Yeah, so yes, I was a pandemic mother and trying to juggle. I didn't have daycare, it was closed. So I had to juggle having my son home and having my job at the time. And, it's just about, again, it's the support. That's when I started doing the grocery delivery, was just kind of giving myself a little bit of grace. And I feel like, being the default parent, so I work from home and my partner, he works out of the house. And so when daycare calls, I'm the one that's right down the street and I'm the one that's near my phone. And so I do think it's not just default parent, it's also default home, care. And so if the laundry dings, I'm the one that's home. If the HVAC guy shows up, I'm the one that's home. So I think it definitely is a bit of a struggle, but the balance is creating those boundaries. And so, I push back on my husband and say, hey, you're going to have to leave work and come home and meet the HVAC guy. I know I'm the one that's home, but that's not fair that it's always me. So making sure it's kind of a 50-50 as if I was working out of the home. I think that's important.
I'm a little swapped. So my husband always works from home, and we just transitioned to 4 days back in the office. So it's been a transition. I mean, it happened right at the start of summer, so right at the end of summer, so right when we're gearing up for kindergarten and whole new routine. So I mean, September was rough. I mean, it just was a month. But we're finding our groove. I think a lot of it has, now that I'm out of the home that much more, I think it's forced me to delegate better at home. I think a lot of times I was taking things on just because I know how to do it, I'll just do it, it'll be done. And that's just not really a viable solution anymore. So I've had to do a better job of kind of shoring up how we communicate and just making sure that we have a plan in motion for how we're going to conquer that week. I think we take it day by day, week by week. We're not, we can't look out too much farther than that. But and I have been trying to set more boundaries for work as well. So like committing to a train, right? Like even if I'm working on a project, knowing, okay, I have to get on this 5:15, I can work on the train, I can log on later. But I think by keeping myself more committed to when I'm coming home, because it's my night for homework, it's my night for pickup, that's helped kind of maintain kind of a sense of shared responsibility. So we're figuring it out, but it's going.
This goes into challenges, and we all face them, whether we're a working mom, non-working mom, just working in general. But being a working mom in the media industry, in roles that are so hectic, that are very 24/7, that require a lot of time, patience, and focus, I would just love to hear some of the challenges you've faced in your career so far, how you've overcome them, and how you're working to be better. So Erica, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, there are many. I think probably the biggest challenge for me has been honoring the sort of employee that I want to be, the very career-driven person, while also honoring that I want to be a very good mom at the same time. And so again, it's sort of all of the things that we've talked about, trying to find that balance. I also happen to be the only parent on my very wonderful team. And so that, I think, has sort of created this pressure that I put on myself to set a good example, to set those boundaries, to over-communicate where, in the moments that we can. And I think that all of the challenges are sort of inward. I don't want them to think that, Erica's off being a mom now, and so maybe she's not as reliable as she would be. And sort of, I have to remind myself that I'm also a mom when things are going well. But I would say, aside from just the kind of speed of everything, it's really that coming to terms with having to exist as both things 24/7.
Do you think that being a mom has made you a better manager?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. I think, again, a lot of the sort of skills that, you sort of
Yep.
build as a parent translate. I feel like I'm more vulnerable than I was before, which I think is a quality that I've looked toward for leaders. And so that's definitely something that I'm working on, is showing that vulnerability, to mention that I do need to step away, or mention that, something's going on with childcare, whatever it is. So I feel like as I grow into motherhood, I also am growing into leadership. And so I don't know, I feel like maybe this might be controversial, but the best leaders are moms. And so
I feel like I have no choice but to be so clear with my communication. Like when I tell my son, go put your shoes on, I have to be like, go put your shoes on, put your socks on first. Like, you have to give such clear directions. And
yeah.
I feel like that's translated so well to my day-to-day. I don't know if you all agree, but I have to give like very clear steps when it comes to things I need to get done at home. And that's really helped in a lot of ways, and a lot of like the need to get done now situations. Do you all agree? Yeah. All right, so let's talk about guilt and pressure, because we all feel guilty. We all play the I should have. I should have been at my kids' trip. I should have been at their parade, or whatever they have, whatever spirit day they have that I forgot about and my child's not dressed for. So we talk about that a lot. For all of you to know, this is not a common role for working moms. So the most common role for working moms are teachers and nurses. When I looked at all the statistics, media is not there. It's like very low at the bottom. It was like media and communications. So our roles were really not listed there. And then a quarter of working moms say that they've turned down a promotion because of guilt and pressure. So how are you handling it? How are you handling the guilt and the pressure of juggling a career and motherhood? Sarah, do you want to start?
I'd love to, because being two places at once and being two people at once is, I think, one of the biggest challenges. There are days where I end my day and I look back and think, I have two full-time jobs and I didn't do either of them well today. And that's a lot of guilt. But I laugh at this question for me today, because I'm literally in two places at once today. I am flying home right after this. It's my son's birthday. And I wanted to be here because I think this is such an important conversation for us to be having. And I don't think it's talked about enough. And of course, I want to be home to see him. And so I felt very guilty not waking up with him this morning. But I think that, along with the guilt, there's also a lot of pros. There's a lot of really great things that come with, being a remote employee, for example, and being able to be, there with my son. And for me, it's being home. I saw his first steps. I wouldn't have seen that if I was working in an office. And also, being able to have a career, which is a demanding one. And to your point, we don't get summers off. So it's a full-time job, doing
All the
both,
time.
all the time, doing both.
Yeah. How about you, Kate?
I think guilt and pressure are inevitable, right? I think, before children, very passionate about my career, very passionate about my family. You always want to be doing the best, being able to do more, thinking about what's next. So I don't see pressure or guilt ever going away. I think it's more so being able to recognize what you're doing well, allowing yourself to make mistakes, and I make a lot of them, but understanding what led to that mistake, what could I maybe do differently next time so I can avoid feeling guilty. I've missed some birthdays before for work, and I also like to remember I'm raising two amazing girls. I want to set a good example for them. I love my career. I want them to be passionate about what they do, and knowing that that takes sacrifices, and to do all the great things, and when we are together, being able to celebrate that. So I think just trying to remind myself of that, but I think it's always there a little bit.
I had read that when you're going to work, to not complain about it to your children, to make sure that you're even if you're having a really bad day or you're going into a bad day, to not complain as you're dropping them off at school because they don't want you to leave, or because mommy has to go to work. It's mommy gets to go to work. Mom gets to do this. And I feel like I've changed my viewpoint a lot on that. I give it up to every stay-at-home mom because I know I wouldn't be built to do something like that. And sometimes it's not enough time after work. Sometimes I feel like it's those last couple hours or feel like an eternity when you're trying to put your kid down for bed and open your laptop and get back online. But the guilt is just always there. I feel like you always feel like you should be doing something else. And there's always that example that you want to set, but you feel like you're just never good enough. And I don't think moms say that enough. We all feel it. We're never good enough employees. We never are good enough parents. We're never good enough partners, whatever it may be. But what I've tried to do is just be honest about it. I feel like, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but in a lot of ways, I've just become more honest of an employee. When my kid gets sick, I feel like when I was a new parent, I was just really trying hard to move up in my career. I would apologize a million times. Right. Gosh, I'm so sorry my son is sick. I'm so sorry I have to leave. And now it's, my kid's sick. Kids get sick, and they get sick all the time.
And that was a lot with COVID. We all had young kids, babies during COVID. I was a first-time mom. We went back to work for 2 weeks, and then the pandemic hit. And I found myself apologizing all the time. And finally, our senior leadership was you can stop apologizing about having a baby during a pandemic. There is no childcare. Do what you need to do. We're here for you. But I think, we all got in this habit of being I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. But, sometimes we're apologizing for things that we
out of
shouldn't be.
control, yeah.
I had many Zoom calls with a baby head poking out,
Right.
wrapped up.
Yeah.
And I just would say, hey guys, don't mind this.
But you remember, I'm sure you said it the first time. I remember the first time I was on a Zoom and my child ran by. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. But he was 3.5 at the time. That's all he did. He couldn't believe he was home. I couldn't believe he was home. And all he was doing was just running laps around me, around the table over and over. But we are so quick to apologize. And I think it just comes down to we're trying so hard to be that great employee, to move up, to be that example, to just be the best we can be and be the best parent. And it's the balance that's just not realistic. It's truly that act that we're trying, but we're always just really trying our best. That's what I feel like I end my day a lot of times with I really tried my best today. Even if it doesn't look like it, I did try my best. Anything else that you want to add about that? Erica, do you have any thoughts?
I think it's everything, I echo everything everyone's saying. It is sort of that, the challenge of being real with yourself and being honest with your team and what you need. And my daughter's younger. My daughter's 21 months old, and so I am also learning some of this because I feel like I'm still in the apology zone. I have the great benefit of a husband that is sort of 50-50 here, and so his team has more parents, and so I think sometimes that there's a little more flexibility there, and so I lean on that a lot. But I do want to get better about just being honest with the reality of the complexities of having to be two people at once, two places at once, all the time.
Yeah, 100%. So I want to take some time with this last question before we go through some fun ends of our conversation questions, but just advice. So I feel like when I was pregnant with my first in an office, I would find any mom I could and just be like, well, how are you doing this? Because I'm like about to do this, or I think I'm not going to be good at this and I need some advice on this. So when you're thinking about some of your colleagues, whether they're here, whether they're going to hear this after, knowing that you're here, for anybody who is on their journey to become a parent, whether it's very early in the conversations or they just found out that they're pregnant, if you've got any advice that you want to share with any of those folks. Who wants to go first?
I can start. So I think something that has stuck with me, well, be kind to yourself, be nice to yourself, and remind yourself that you're doing the best that you can, still practicing it. I think something that stuck with me for a long time is this idea of expanding what success is, expanding what it looks like. I think being there for a drop-off is success now. It's not how I thought before when it was all about work, 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 work. You know, having my daughter said I love you to me this morning, that's success. It's wonderful. And so just, you know, I feel like as our sort of plates get bigger and you have to do more things, just, you know, consider if you're a career-driven person that the things that are fitting into your plate really sort of qualify as success. And so that's sort of helped reshape how I manage, you know, both of the things that we have to do.
And you didn't think that way before, like?
I mean, I think, and like all of us here, media, news, it's always go, go, go. And so I think, you know, success really looked like getting through the day, making sure that it's an error-free sort of environment, high demand, and, you know, all of those things. And so, yeah, I was never really taught to rest. And so I feel like that's now a new thing that I look for in success. It's, you know, if I do get a moment to sit with my daughter, I have to remember that that is part of, you know, being able to have this life, being able to have my career, but also being able to be there and be an example to her, and all of those things fit into success now.
Kate, do you want to go?
I'd say try to prioritize self-care. I think we put a lot of emphasis on making sure our teams and our kids and everyone is good, and it's really easy to take care of yourself. And I think I found when I do take some necessary breaks, I come back refreshed, I come back refocused, and you know, I think you just need a break. And I think a lot of times we don't give ourselves that grace. So if you can, sneak out to get a manicure, sneak out to go for a walk. Like, I found that physically leaving can sometimes be the answer to self-care, just because if I'm around, oftentimes someone's going to ask me a question. So kind of removing myself. But yeah, just trying to prioritize self-care among all the other things that you're doing to give yourself a break.
Do you ever feel guilty, though, with the self-care?
You know, the first time around, yes. The second time around, no.
Good.
Within reason, you know.
Yeah.
I think the advice would be two things. One is be transparent about the fact that you are stepping away for your child. I feel like a lot of moms will almost try to hide it because you're trying to just be the employee only. And so, you know, you might have to go, today was different and I had to do pickup today and it's not normally what I do. So you're still on Slack in the pickup line, you know, trying to not pretend like you're on, but to be on, to be always on. I think just saying, I'm stepping away and I'm going to pick up my kid is really important. I think that we should be really transparent about the fact that we are doing both.
And non-apologetic.
And
I'm sorry to
non-apologetic.
interrupt you, but, like,
Non-apologetic.
that's truly, like, we cannot physically be on 24/7.
We have to step away, and we have a family. And you know, your company knows that when they hired you, or maybe you didn't have one at the time, but they know you have one. I think the other thing that I would say is create the boundaries for between work and home. For me, I'm remote, and so a physical boundary. I will say, like, if any new moms out here or new parents, when they're really little, you are very comfortable to have them sort of like always around you and to maybe work from the kitchen counter because you're kind of always trying to be in that room. Eventually, you have to create an actual physical, maybe a door closed boundary where you can close the door and say, I'm at work. And then you can open the door and say, I'm home. You know, I think that's really important to be able to delineate.
Yeah. For me, it was just understanding that everybody's journey is not the same. So I had my first child very quickly, very easily. Like I wanted to have a baby, and the next thing I know, I was pregnant and I was having a baby. But with my second, it took a very long time. It took me 5 years, 2 losses. It took shots and meds and everything, and not enough people talk about that, especially at work. I had gone for different treatments before going into the office. I had 6 a.m. appointments at a fertility doctor and then was in the office at 8:30. And I just remember those moments being like, I'm so embarrassed. I don't know anybody else who's doing this. I don't know how to talk about it. And I know more and more celebrities are talking about it. More people are sharing their stories. But I feel like once you hear one person say, you know, my pregnancy wasn't easy. My birth wasn't easy. My birth plan did not go anywhere near what it was. You have all of those situations, but I don't think we share it enough. And I definitely know we don't share it enough with our colleagues. I've been very mindful since having both and knowing that my family's complete, I'm so happy and I'm so thrilled that I want to share it more. But I always try to like find that fine line of trying not to overshare or make people know that they can come to me and be comfortable with me, but also knowing that this might not be a conversation for everybody. Do you guys have similar thoughts on that or feel like the same way?
I definitely agree that it's not talked about enough. And, you know, I have a personal colleague who, you know, has had a journey, and I feel like I was very grateful that she opened up and shared with me because it really helped. I mean, to your point, I have to step away. I have appointments. I have multiple appointments, or I'm just not feeling well today. If you were pregnant with while working and you know, having to pretend like you don't have morning sickness all day, 24/7, just sitting there smiling in a meeting, I think that again, it's the transparency. You know, be open and honest. Don't hide it. You know, it doesn't have to be an overshare. You're still at work, you know, what have you. But I think just letting people know that you're human and you have a family, and however that family was brought together is going to take, you know, your time away from work in some cases, and that just all has to be kind of out there.
And like the first time saying no is okay. Like I remember being invited to happy hours, 8 months pregnant, feeling like this is literally the last place I want to go, and just trucking through it. And with my second being like, it's COVID, I don't have to do anything. I can literally just lay in bed and it's totally fine. But I feel like there is not enough of that. You don't have to do anything as you're trying to figure out what family looks like. With your little ones, if you want to really get home for bedtime, you go home for bedtime. It doesn't always have to be a big story or a big song and dance. Like it could just truly be, I want to be home and I want to be with my kids.
I think it extends to even after. I found a community of nursing, pumping parents, and so the period coming back, again, as sort of the only parent on my team, it's like I have to go pump. I'm pumping in between meetings. I'm, doing these things, and so I feel like being transparent about that as a need, because it does take a physical toll on your body also, sort of helped set those boundaries too. And at my workplace has built a community of people that, we sort of, there's a lactation room, there's a little bit of a community there that also just extends the support that you get.
And the fact that you can even talk about that now,
I would never imagine in a million years that I'm like, hello, I pumped multiple times a day.
That's a full-time job too. So you have a full-time job as a working person, a full-time job as a mom, and that's a third full-time job. So
I'm done with it now.
But I just feel like we are in such a different generation where we could say stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like we can openly share, I need to step away, it's now my time to go pump, or I need to go home because I want to be home to read my child a story for bed. we're very lucky to be there, but there is still work that needs to be done, like conversations like this, or being able to share that, having leaders that understand it, working at workplaces that really get it. So I feel like we're really doing it. We're doing it, guys. So I want to end with a couple of fun, quick fire questions, just how we're getting things done. First one, what is the quick dinner that never fails in your house?
Tacos.
Kraft
One
mac
pan.
and cheese.
All
We
day.
do like a Trader Joe's fried rice. My whole household runs on Trader Joe's prepared and frozen food.
Mine too, and I'm not mad about it. It gets the job done. We could always make a Kraft mac and cheese. I feel like I've perfected it. Do you feel the same, Kate?
I do. I think it's very good. I had it yesterday.
Had it or your kids had it?
I mean, it's, like the typical, like, eating the spoon, like, over the
You mix
stove,
it.
being like, everyone fine?
Yeah, totally. Your favorite store for kids' clothes?
Target.
I'm loving H&M right now.
I do hand-me-downs from Jessica's family.
I'm a big
Really?
fan of hand-me-downs, and I love when my daughter outgrows things and I can give it to Erica.
A friend with a child that's like just, a little slightly older than you.
It's a good tip.
Amazing. But I also remember being like, is it okay for me to take hand-me-downs from other people in the beginning? Like, do I really need to? Should I? And now I'm like, bring it over. You got a princess dress? My daughter loves princesses. Bring it all over. I feel like I said this to you ladies before. I'm such a true millennial and love the Gap and will live and die by a Gap denim jacket for my daughter and my son. And then I have vintage ones from my in-laws who my mother-in-law has saved them. So my daughter wore like a cool little baggy vintage one today, but yeah.
Can't wait for my daughter to wear it. Sounds lovely.
It's gonna be great. You're gonna love it. A banger of a kid's song.
So my son is into Blippi right now, and they have all the songs. I was telling these women the Excavator song. When you listen to it, it talks about how the excavator works all day, no time for sleep, no time for play, and I realize I'm an excavator.
We are in our Frozen era, so let it go.
And we're a Raffi household, so Baby Beluga. It really hits.
I will force the Wiggles on my kids until the day I die. I love them, and I love that they've really built themselves out a little bit more. I don't know if anybody else is a big fan of the Wiggles besides me. I love the drama of the divorce between the two of them. I love the people that have dropped out. I love the new additions. So we've seen them twice live. I'm proud to say that. Do the Propeller is my favorite. They always end with that. I made eyes with one of them before the end, and I said, we're going to do it. We're going to do the Propeller. So that's my favorite. And the last one is, what is your favorite kids show, and why is it not Bluey?
So I love Bluey, but actually there's a show, it's called Puffin Rock. So if you are familiar, it's basically like a Nat Geo cartoon where they talk about the puffins in Ireland, and you learn a whole lot about puffins. And Chris O'Dowd is the narrator. So it's a good one.
It changes all the time. Right now, they're very into Dino Ranch, which is an interesting premise. They're like live in a ranch, but with dinos. They seem to like it. So that's where we are right now, yeah.
I can't wait to watch things with my little one, but she's very into Sesame Street, Elmo, Abby Cadavi, she calls her the whole gang, yeah.
So we are a big Bluey household. I've shared that with anybody and everybody. If you've never seen the episode Baby Race, it made me cry multiple times about being a mom, trying to be the perfect mom, comparing yourself to what you think is the perfect mom, who's a poodle. It's just, to me, it's like one of the most amazing shows, and I'm really sad that it might be over. I was more sad than my children. But yeah, so for me, it's Bluey. That was all of our questions. Does anybody have any questions for us? There was one woman behind you.
Hi, my name is Kathy. The reason for this is that I feel like I understand but very, very different. But I always love it when you have no perspective because also especially normally there's a I remember one time I asked one of my first friends who had a baby, oh, and he was like, oh, he's doing all this, but he's not helping me. That's his responsibility. That changed my entire perspective when we were constantly fed one narrative, right? So I super applaud always when there's men in the audience, by the way, in this kind of events. I super applaud that. And I also have male friends and colleagues who are fathers who also have struggles. So they're different. Parenthood has struggles. Also that includes not just men, but also single parents.
So I heard something very interesting once where you often hear that I'm a working mom. How often do you hear I'm a working dad? They're just working, right? I think it's an important conversation that it often takes a village, and it is ideally it's a tag team. It's two people. I also have heard when the mom always being the default mother is going to a work trip, it's, oh, that's so nice, he's going to watch the kid. No, he's not a babysitter. He's going to be home with his child. So I think that there is still a shift that's needed in the conversation there. I think that there's a lot of pressure on the working mom that maybe the working dad doesn't see. And so, yeah, I think that conversation should be, more front of mind in the sense of it's both of us. We're not the default parent. I think it should be, 50-50 and the other side if you have it. And if you don't, it should be, what's your village?
Well, dads are now they spend 3 times more time with their children than they have in previous generations. So, like, it is changing. So the conversation is happening. It's just, I feel like maybe it's not just happening on the stages yet, and it should. You're absolutely right. It needs to start happening.
I think also the reality is that the gender gap, and you've shared some of that, it's very real, and so the experience of being a woman in the workplace sort of coinciding with being a mother at home is also just a very specific set of challenges that I think, again, addressing them is the way to go. But I do feel like, yeah, that the stat about, I read the same thing about fathers spending more time with their children, I feel is progress, and so, it's definitely moving in a certain direction, I'd say.
Is there anything companies could do, or some other peers and other companies that you've heard?
So I was so proud. My previous company, right before I had gotten pregnant, they changed their whole maternity leave, parental leave. They changed it to a parental leave. They changed bereavement leave to include loss and surrogacy loss. So I feel like the more companies that are even talking about that is important. When you work at these smaller organizations, it's just a conversation. And I feel like if you have employees that know that they can bring these conversations up, that's all it takes. But for some of these bigger organizations that we've worked at, that we currently work at, it does take like those couple of people to send the emails to HR to get stats. I was looking through stats from like 10 other media companies before we changed our bereavement and our leave policy. But it takes that. It takes like those couple parents that don't love what's happening or that needs more to happen.
Having companies embrace remote whenever it's available, if it's possible in that person's role. It doesn't have to be full-time remote. Maybe it's just temporary or hybrid. But I think that you might find that your talent pool is opened if you embrace allowing employees to be remote when possible. Pandemic mom, daycares were closed. And when they opened back up, they were short-staffed and they weren't accepting new kids, and so I didn't have an option to go into the office. I had a nanny that came over, and I kind of had to be remote. So if I didn't have a remote opportunity, I would not be in this industry, just for that sheer fact. So I think just embracing that and being flexible. Again, it doesn't have to be full time or forever, but you'll find that you open up your talent pool if you are a little more flexible.
And I think even asking that question. So if you are a leader at an organization, just saying, are you a parent? Are you thinking about becoming a parent? What could we do better for you to help you on your journey? I think that would really go very far, and you can learn a lot about what employees value. They may want to be in the office 1 or 2 days a week just to get out of their home. They may never want to be in an office. You don't know that until you start asking those questions. Yeah. In the back, we've got time for one more, so go ahead. Patience, 100%. Sully's on my team, so I can see. No, but truly, I know when I'm losing my patience, and whether it be at work or at home. And there have been times that when I'm at home and my kids are fighting and they just won't stop, that I'm like to my husband, it's your turn. I can't handle this. And at work, it's if I can patiently sit down and talk to you about a problem or talk you through what's going on, I've done good for that day. But I've become such a more patient person. I thought I was really patient until I had kids, and it's made me much more patient. Anybody else?
Time management. I feel like it's really, especially when they're younger, right? You're always against the clock, right? What's the sleep window? Are we approaching nap? Are they overtired? You get really good at timing down to the minute of your day. And I feel like that's translated over well to my work life, understanding how much time I have to do something, really focusing and getting it done. So I think time management has improved now that I'm a parent.
Yeah, definitely over-indexing on the planning generally. I think that's translated. And again, all of our jobs you have to be a good planner. And so, you have to be an ultra good planner because, yeah, everything goes by the schedule, basically.
I'd say juggling, definitely being able to juggle a bunch of things. And then in reverse, your job helping your house a little bit. I don't know if anyone's tried to plan a trip to Disney, but it's a full-time job, and there's a lot of spreadsheets involved. So yeah,
Love a spreadsheet.
But let me tell you, we could plan a really good trip to Disney with all the planning experience we've had.
Oh yeah, lots of stuff.
Come with me, it's great. I want to thank the three of you for being on this panel. I want to thank everybody for being here. This was a conversation that I've wanted to have for a while, so I am just so glad that this has happened. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.